Thank you for joining us today. It's great to see everyone. We'll get started here with Emily from Living Lakes.
Hello, my name is Emily Mask and I'm the Applied Reconciliation Coordinator with Living Lakes Canada. In my role, I work with various programs to build partnerships and establish meaningful collaborations between our Indigenous partners in the Columbia Basin and beyond. I would like to acknowledge that Living Lakes Canada conducts our water stewardship works in the Columbia Basin, which is in the unceded traditional territories of the Ktunaxa, Lele Tene, the Sinaiks, the Secwepemc, and the Silks. And I'll pass it back to Paige.
Thank you so much, Emily. My name is Paige Thurston. I'm the Database and Community Engagement Coordinator here with Living Lakes Canada. I'm joined today by Lori Frankham, Education Program Coordinator with the Central Kootenai Invasive Species Society. It looks like our participants today represent a wide range of community members and professionals in water monitoring, restoration, and stewardship. We're so happy that you've joined us today to learn more about what we can do to prevent the spread of invasive species while we are out conducting our water stewardship and monitoring work. We'll start today's session with an introduction to Living Lakes, followed by a presentation from Lori on the impacts, identification, and best practices for mitigating the impacts of invasive species in the Columbia Basin. We'll conclude by introducing a few Living Lakes programs and initiatives related to aquatic invasive species, monitoring and prevention, and ways that you can get involved. Before we begin, I'll just cover a few housekeeping items. The session is being recorded, and we will send out a follow-up email after the session with a link to the recording, some additional resources, and a feedback survey. We really do appreciate hearing your feedback, and one person who completes that survey will receive a prize. If you have any questions during the presentations, please enter them in the Q&A tool available in the Zoom controls at the bottom of your screen, and we'll look forward to answering your questions at the end of the webinar. To start, we'll give you a bit of information about Living Lakes Canada. We are a water stewardship NGO founded and based in the Columbia Basin with projects at the regional, provincial, and national scales. We focus on bridging the gap between science and action to foster citizen-based water stewardship. We collaborate to protect fresh water in a changing climate. Our water monitoring programs cover the entire water cycle, from monitoring climate and snowpack at high elevations to streams, lakes, wetlands, and groundwater. We operate an open source database, the Columbia Basin Water Hub, to provide open access to water data for research and decision making. We offer education and outreach programs, including training community stewardship groups in the Federal Cabin Protocol. And we support policy initiatives at the provincial and federal levels. Across all of these program areas and different types of aquatic environments, there are a few common concerns. One of these is climate change, and the other is the potential for invasive species to negatively affect the health and biodiversity of our aquatic ecosystems. Living Lakes is currently collaborating with a number of partners to contribute to efforts to prevent and mitigate the impacts of invasive species. One of these important partners is the Central Kootenai Invasive Species Society, and we're so excited to have Lori joining us today to share some information about aquatic invasive species and what we can all do to prevent their spread while out conducting our water stewardship efforts. So I'll hand it over to Lori now.
Great, thanks for the introduction, Paige, and thanks for everyone for joining us today. So I'm just going to swap over to my screen here. Okay, are you seeing my slideshow okay there, Paige? Give me a thumbs up.
Yeah, looks great.
Okay, great. So like I said, thanks for having us today. We are going to cover ways that you can help prevent aquatic invasive species in the Columbia Basin and beyond, because we know all of our waterways are pretty much connected. So what I'll be covering is a quick introduction about CICUS and Aquatic Invasive Species 101, followed by some best management practices. We'll do some aquatic and riparian invasive species ID. And we'll also let you know about some volunteer opportunities if you want to get involved and you're in the Kootenai Lake area. And then just to wrap things up, we have a little interactive species quiz for you to participate in. So first, what is CICUS? So it stands for the Central Kootenai Invasive Species Society. So we're a nonprofit that was formed in 2005. So our mission is to protect our ecosystems and communities by preventing and mitigating the harmful impacts of invasive species. So we operate within the Regional District of Central Kootenai and the Regional District of Kootenai boundary areas A and B. Okay, next up, I'm going to play you a video that just kind of gives you a brief introduction into invasive species. I'm just going to switch videos over here. Sorry.
Invaders! Not the space alien variety, but the uninvited plants, animals, and other organisms that arrive and cause harm in British Columbia. These plants and animals are called invasive species. Invasive species can be pretty, cute, and even cuddly, but when they enter and stay, they impact our environment, economy, and people in British Columbia. Invasive species threaten our native plants and animals by competing for food, water, and space, damaging habitat, and sometimes eating our native species, even babies. Invasive species affect the economy, for example, impacting fisheries and forest production, and reducing grazing land and crop yields. Invasive species also affect us by damaging the places where we live, work, and play. Some invasive species bite, prickle, and even cause allergic reactions. Invasive species are introduced by us, humans. The good news? Everyone can help reduce invasive species by doing things like cleaning, draining, and drying our boats, growing non-invasive plants in our gardens, not releasing unwanted pets or animals into the wild, and helping remove invasive plants. And everyone can spot and report invasive species in British Columbia. Let's stop the invasion.
Okay, so can you guys see my PowerPoint again, Paige? You can just let me know.
Yeah, we're still in like the presenter view though.
Oh, okay. So let me just swap over here. Sorry, guys. We're is that better?
Looks good.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're going to focus on aquatic invasive species in this presentation. So like the video said, it's an organism, so a plant, animal, or pathogen that does cause some sort of economic or ecological or social harm when it's introduced. So if you can think about aquatic invasive species, the economic impacts, this is a picture of some zebra quagga mussels that have attached to a boat propeller. So this definitely would increase boat repair and maintenance costs. The other things that could increase utility bills and taxes, reduce our waterfront property values, decrease revenue from tourism and fishing industry who do rely heavily on healthy aquatic ecosystems. And the other thing to know is that when they are introduced, they're very costly and impossible to control or eradicate. So prevention really is the best tool we have. Environmental impacts. So this is a picture of some fragrant water lily, which is an invasive species that was found in the Kootenays. You can see it's created this monoculture. So what ends up happening is an invasive species gets introduced. It ends up outcompeting native species for resources and space, and this therefore reduces biodiversity and can really degrade wildlife habitat. It can alter stream bank vegetation, vital for fish spawning, habitat, and water quality. And it can really impact water quality, including lowering levels of dissolved oxygen, which can result in fish mortality. And then lastly, there's some social impacts. So, you know, it can definitely impede our recreation opportunities, including swimming, diving, and fishing. So zebra quagga mussels, for example, they can create these toxic algae blooms, which isn't very pleasant to swim in. And then there's also some health implications. So that's some examples of some impacts from aquatic invasive species. So some characteristics to know about invasive species are they produce lots of seeds or babies. So again, the zebra mussel, they can produce up to 1 million eggs per year. So they're prolific producers of seeds and babies. The other thing is they lack natural predators. So when they come into a new ecosystem they don't belong, there's nothing to like eat it to keep it at bay. So it ends up out competing our native resources. So this is yellow flag iris. It does make livestock sick if they're ingested. Therefore, a lot of these grazing animals just simply avoid it because there's other things they'd rather eat. The last characteristics is they do spread easily and quickly establish and thrive. So this is flowering rush. It's an extremely aggressive plant that spreads through seed, rhizome, and once it's introduced, it just really thrives. And they seem to really thrive in disturbed soil, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in best management practices. So how do aquatic invasive species spread? So humans are the #1 vector of spread and introduction for aquatic invasive species. So, I mean, it's good and bad that we're the ones causing the problem, but the thing with that is we can also be part of the solution by simply changing some of our behaviors. So how they do spread is we do see people releasing pets and aquarium plants into wild spaces. So you guys might have heard recently on the CBC, there was a news about, goldfish sort of overtaking some waterways. Definitely on dirty recreation, watercraft equipment and related equipment. And then the horticulture industry is definitely another vector of spread. So selling, buying, and trading invasive ornamental plants is a way that they can be introduced. So how can you help? So like I said, because we are the #1 way they spread, we actually are the #1 way that we can prevent them as well. So I'm just going to go through some best management practices for aquatic invasive species prevention. So the first one I'm going to talk about is clean, drain, dry. And I do have another video to play here, so I'll just switch my screen over. I'll just cue it up.
Do you know that you can help protect BC's 20,000 lakes from an aquatic invasive species invasion? It's as easy as clean, drain, dry. Any good captain knows you don't want stowaways on board. They can seem harmless, but once you get them to a second location, they can definitely stir up some trouble. After your boating adventure, make sure you first clean all plant parts, animals, and mud from the boat, trailer, and equipment like boots, waders, and fishing gear. Then, drain all items onto land that can hold water, like buckets, wells, bilge, and ballast. Finally, dry all items completely before launching into another body of water. Everyone knows the fun is had out on the water, but it's what you do on dry land that keeps that fun intact. Do your part to help protect BC's precious aquatic ecosystems, recreation opportunities, and boating industry. Check these common hiding spots for invasive species: prop, anchor, bait bucket, dock lines, hull, rollers, trailer, bunks, axle, live wells, bilge, motor, and don't forget to mop your poop deck.
Okay, so hopefully you see my PowerPoint again here. If not, let me know.
Yep.
So clean, drain, dry. So pretty simple. We're just asking folks when you take your watercraft from one water body to another to practice clean, drain, dry. So it's simple as cleaning your watercraft and your equipment. So it's not just the boat. And keep in mind this applies to non-motorized watercraft as well. So stand-up paddleboards, canoes, kayaks, things like that. The next one is to ensure that you're draining onto dry land. So they're not going into storm drains or into that water, another water body. So anything that can hold water. And the last one is dry. So you want to make sure that all your items are completely dry before launching your watercraft into a new body of water. So don't get too hung up on what species you're washing off your boat. Just arrive with a clean boat. And the bonus is it helps, with the maintenance and life, like keeping your things nice and clean is a good thing for your watercraft as well. The next one is to ensure you're stopping at watercraft inspection stations. So you may have seen these set up around BC. So this is part of the BC Invasive Mussel Defense Program. So the goal of this program is to prevent the introduction of zebra and quagga mussels into BC. So it began in 2015, and it does consist of watercraft inspection stations, an outreach program, and some lake monitoring. So whenever you're traveling around, just making sure that you are complying and you're stopping at these inspection stations, and just keep in mind that it is the law, and failure to stop at one of these inspection stations would result in a fine. So the important thing to know is that it would only take one boat that has mussels on it to introduce them and devastate these BC waters. So this is a map of the zebra quagga mussel distribution. So anything that's red is any of the contaminated provinces and states where there's known zebra quagga mussel infestations. And the green is, this little protected area in the Northwest. The gray we're unsure of. So if you are traveling around North America with your boat, and you visited a red shaded province or state in the past 30 days, just ensure that you're not attempting to clean the watercraft yourself. The watercraft may require some decontamination, so hotter water, high pressure wash, and you can call the RAP line to do so, which would be great. And the reason for the 30 days is zebra quagga mussels can live out of water for up to 30 days and remain alive. So it's not just that they'll die if they're not in water, they can survive out of water. The other thing is if you suspect invasive mussels, to report it to the RAP line as well. So you're seeing an out of province boat, and we're going to go through the IDing of these zebra mussels to make sure that you're reporting them as well. Because like I said, it would just take one boat, and we really want to prevent them from being introduced. Okay, so our next best management program is the Don't Let It Loose. So I have another video. I'll just cue it up here for you.
Don't you just love fluffy bunnies, cute little goldfish, teeny turtles? I know my kids do. But sometimes reality hits. Bunnies poop a lot. Goldfish are kind of boring. And cleaning a turtle tank, there are no secrets to the ooze. It stinks. Sometimes children can outgrow their pets as fast as their clothes. Please, don't let your pets loose in nature. It's cruel to the animals, devastating to the environment, and downright illegal. Call your local pet store or visit us at bcinvasives.ca to learn more.
Okay, hopefully you have the correct screen up there. So don't let it loose. So the big thing is to not release your unwanted exotic pets or plants into the wild. You might think you're giving them this great new home, but like the video said, it's cruel to the animal, and it can definitely upset the ecosystem when you introduce any sort of new animal or plant to an environment. So definitely recommend learning an animal's life cycle and needs before you purchase it. So for example, the turtle can live for a really long time. So just ensure you're committed to, a lifelong looking after that animal. If you can no longer care for a pet, definitely contacting the place you purchased it. I know the pet stores in our region happily will rehome. We'll take fish back that you can no longer care for. They do have sort of like an adoption program. So definitely talking to the pet store that you bought it from is good. You can also see if the animal can be used for educational purposes at science centers, zoos, aquariums, or schools. You can try to rehome your pet, so finding someone else who might like it to take it in for you. And then if all these other actions fail, then the best thing to do is to euthanize the animal in a humane way. So you can probably contact your closest vet for that. So the other part of Don't Let It Loose is aquarium plants. So this is a picture of a zebra quagga mussel that was found in an aquarium moss ball. There was a shipment of these that arrived at pet stores in BC last year. So conservation officers, this was like the alarm bells were sent, they all got confiscated and searched. And if someone were to release these into the wild, that would be a vector of spread. We always thought watercraft was going to be the way that these would be introduced, but it looks like we have a new culprit of these zebra mussels showing up in moss balls. So if you do have an aquarium or a pond and you need to dispose of any of those plants, just drying them and freezing them and adding them to your non-compost garbage is the best way to dispose of aquarium plants. Okay, so the next best management practice is to be plant-wise. So I have another video here, so I'll just cue it up.
I am so
Sorry, my share screen is gone. There we go.
To getting back in the garden this year. But here are some things you'll never hear your neighbors say. Boy, those weeds are coming in really nicely. You planted blackberry bushes along our shared fence? Great idea. I look forward to years of trimming back prickly bushes. This year, I found this pamphlet at my local garden shop and discovered that gardening is not as innocuous as I thought. If I choose an invasive plant, it could impact my yard, my neighborhood, or even worse. Turns out it's easy to make the right choice by using this guide. Do your part to protect BC from invasive plants.
Okay, so be plant-wise. So definitely knowing what you grow is really important. So making sure that you're choosing non-invasive plants for your garden. So there are resources out there for you. So like the video said, there's plant-wise programs. You can definitely jump on ckis.ca or search Be Plant-wise for that Grow Me Instead brochure. The other program to be aware of is CKIS has an eco garden program. So if you're interested in having your garden not only be non-invasive, but to be great for pollinators, not use very much water, and just have a little bit more of a better ecological footprint in your own yard, you can definitely go on our website and look at the Eco Garden project. So the other thing is avoid picking plants from roadsides, gravel pits, or other disturbed areas. These, you might think that they're wildflowers, but you could be bringing these invasive species home and spreading seeds. And then ensuring that you're controlling of invasive plants prior to flower or seed development. So if you are joining us from the CKIS region, just know that our landfills do accept invasive plants for free, and you can jump on our website and there's some more disposal information on there. Okay, so those of you who are joining us who are actually doing work, restoration work, or monitoring, or anytime that you're in an aquatic environment doing work, there's some best management practices to look at so you're not spreading invasive species. So, the term for this is work clean, go. So the first one is, again, come clean and leave clean. So you want to ensure that you're arriving and leaving sites with clean gear, clothing, footwear, vehicles, etc. So you can see some photos here. I always carry some water with me and some boot brushes to make sure that when we are working in spots where we're cleaning our gear and our footwear, to making sure we're not spreading any seeds around. The other one is knowing what invasive species are present at your site, and that is because you want to start work at the uninfected or least infected areas first before moving over to that area. You also want to avoid areas with invasive plants that are in seed, so they don't hitchhike a ride with you and arrive somewhere new. You want to avoid unnecessary soil disturbance because, like I said, that is a characteristic of invasive species. They do thrive in disturbed soil. So do your best to leave any native or desirable vegetation intact, because when there's a really healthy native plant population, it is tricky for invasive species to take hold. The other one is avoid parking or storing equipment in an infested area. And last, if you're ever bringing in any fill or erosion control materials, just ensure that you're sourcing weed-free materials for that. And lastly, spotting and reporting. So definitely knowing how to identify invasive plants, especially the high priority ones, and reporting them. So I'm going to go through some species ID after this slide. So any high priority reports you can report directly to CKIS, and I think in the Q&A we're going to put this this link in here, or in the chat, the link, so you can see it there. So we do have a reporting on our website. You can email CKIS, you can give us a call. The other thing to know is there is a report invasives app you can download on your phone that goes to the government that then would get passed over to CKIS. The other thing to be aware of is CKIS does have some iNaturalist projects. So iNaturalist is great to help you ID plants, take a picture of it, upload your observations. So definitely check that out, as well as a way to help you with plant ID, but also to do some reporting. Okay, so we're going to get into some species ID. So the first one we're going to talk about is the zebra and quagga mussels, and I do have another video here, so I'll just cue it up.
These two cousins from the Black and Caspian Seas have hitchhiked their way from Europe to the U.S., zapping every ounce of food energy from whatever water source they inhabit. These filter-feeding fanatics can be found in lakes and rivers all across the United States. The zebra and quagga mussels are just one more enemy in this daily battle with the silent invaders. There's something therapeutic about the sounds of water splashing against the shore of beautiful Lake Superior. But all is not well beneath these tranquil waves. Just outside the Great Lakes Aquarium in Duluth, Minnesota, Doug Jensen uses a makeshift device to do a little unconventional fishing for an invasive species that has found a home here.
And we'll see if this works.
Doug slides his homemade trap up the side of the sheet pilings, carefully raising it from the depths of the lake.
We have one.
His prey is a small shelled creature that stuck itself to the side of the pilings. This is a zebra mussel, which in and of itself looks pretty harmless.
It's not just one zebra mussel that causes the problem. It's when we have millions and millions of zebra mussels on the bottoms of our lakes and rivers that are causing the problem.
And there are millions. Even more. The zebra mussel, and especially its cousin, the quagga mussel, have spread from the Great Lakes region like a virus and is now found across the country.
It's about preventing these things from getting into our lakes and rivers, because once they're there, we just can't get rid of them.
Doug Jensen is one of 6 experts who will help tell the incredible story of how one small creature is having such a devastating effect on so many bodies of fresh water. Dan Malloy is a research scientist at the New York State Museum in Albany.
They can change the ecosystem in ways you don't want the ecosystem changed.
Dr. Russell Kuhl is a research scientist at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee Great Lakes Water Institute.
There are undoubtedly many more individual quagga mussels than there are individual fish.
Byron Carnes is an aquatic biologist at the National Park Service on the St. Croix National Scenic Riverway along the border of Minnesota and Wisconsin.
Fish species that used to be prevalent in Lake Michigan are gone.
Jeff Weborg fishes Lake Michigan for a living.
We don't know if we're going to be in business from one year to the next.
Ed Rutherford is a research fishery biologist at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
We don't have oil spills in the Great Lakes, but we have something just as serious, which is invasive species.
And Tom Nalepa is also a research biologist at NOAA.
I never would expect an organism to become so abundant so quickly and have such dramatic changes as we have seen.
The first zebra mussel in North America was found in 1988 in Lake St. Clair near Detroit. From there, they expanded eastward to Lake Ontario and into the St. Lawrence Seaway. The quagga mussel was discovered 1 year later in 1989. The theory is that both species of mussels hitchhiked a ride from Eastern Europe by living in the ballast waters of giant ocean-going ships. Once here, the zebra mussel quickly spread by the millions throughout the Great Lakes. The quagga, however, took its time, eventually muscling in on the zebra mussel's territory, and is now the dominant invasive in unthinkable numbers.
There are tremendous numbers of quaggas in Lake Michigan right now. It's hard to imagine, but our scientist at NOAA who studies life on the bottom has estimated that there are over 4 quadrillion mussels on the bottom of the lake.
Jeff Weborg's fishing business on Lake Michigan near Gills Rock, Wisconsin, offers visual evidence of just one of the serious problems created by the enormous population of zebra and quagga mussels. As he releases gill nets out the back of his fishing tug, massive numbers of zebra and quagga mussels drop to the deck like hailstones. The mess they create speaks for itself.
It'd be great to see them disappear, but that's not going to happen. They're here and they're here to stay. And so now you figure out how to deal with them.
But the real mess these mussels create is with the ecology of the lake, especially since the quagga mussel has arrived.
where we had zebra mussels in kind of restricted areas in warmer water regions, now we have quagga mussels in both warmer water regions and in deeper cold water regions.
In other words, they're everywhere. Coming up, how quagga mussels are devastating.
Okay, so you can see there why we don't want to have zebra quagga mussels introduced to BC waters. So how to identify them? You wouldn't be able to see the microscopic larvae of them because they're microscopic, but when the adults, they are small and range in size from about 1 mil to 3 centimeters, so about the size of your pinky nail. They are a D-shaped shell that can be brown or cream colored with jagged brown or black stripes across the shell, usually present. Okay, so the next one we're going to talk about is the Asian clam. So the Ministry of Environment confirmed last year the first sightings of the Asian clam in the Pend Oreille River. This is the first confirmed presence of live invasive freshwater clams in the central Kootenay region. However, they are in other parts of British Columbia, but we're really trying to prevent the spread, and more people that can let us know if they spot them, the better, so we can act on it. So they're quite small as well. They're about 25 mil. They can get up to 65 mil in length. They're yellowish green to light brown with evenly spaced distinct ridges on the shell surface. They do occur in streams, rivers, lakes, reservoirs, irrigation, and drainage canals. You can find these for sale in aquarium pet stores. There are a lot of time they're sold as pygmy or gold clams, so we just really discourage people from even buying these in the first place for their aquarium. Okay, so the next one is the American bullfrog. So the American bullfrog, there is confirmed sightings and there is control efforts taking place in Creston. There's also Nelway. There's some confirmed sightings, really prevalent on like Vancouver Island, the Sunshine Coast, but yeah, in the Kootenays, we are seeing the bullfrog action team really take a dent in their population, but definitely getting people to report any more sightings would really be beneficial. So the adults are very large, so they can be 20 centimeters from snout to vent length and can weigh up to 750 grams. The males do tend to be a little bit smaller than females. Their colors can vary, so they're green to brown in color with large golden eyes. The male throats do turn yellow during mating season, which runs usually from June to August, depending on water temperatures. And they do have a smooth back with no dorsal fold. So that's a skin fold running down the back. I don't know if you can see that in the top slide. That dorsal fold does not exist. But what does exist is a fold from their eyeball down to the shoulder. Again, in that top slide sort of shows you that right behind that circle, you can see that fold there. Another one to look out for it's called the tympanum. So it's sort of like their ear, if you will. It's quite large, and the males is actually twice the size of the eyeball. Now with American bullfrogs, they're highly aquatic. You're more likely to hear them than to see them. They do have a very distinct mating call. So I'm gonna cue up a video here so you guys can actually hear the mating call. So let's get that started. Okay, so as you heard that, it's a very distinct call. So if you hear that, we would definitely like to hear reports on it. And the call can be quite loud and carry, I think, up to a kilometer is what they say that you can hear it from. So that's something, definitely keep your ears open for them. Okay, so then now we're going to move on to some riparian and aquatic plants. So the first one is yellow flag iris. So there is quite a lot of this in the Kootenay area. If you ever go to the Creston Valley Wildlife Management Area, unfortunately, it has been inundated with this plant, and it was introduced through the horticulture industry. So I'm going to play another video that shows you the difference between yellow flag iris and cattail, because the two species are quite similar, so it's good to know the difference.
Hello everyone, my name is Tara and I work with CKIS. Today I will be showing you how to identify yellow flag iris and cattail and how to tell the difference between the two. So let's start with yellow flag iris. Yellow flag iris can be found along wet areas, so streams, lakes, or pond. Usually it has a beautiful yellow flower that you can easily identify the plant with. However, it's not in bloom right now, so I'll be showing you how to identify yellow flag iris without the flowers today. So it has a long, slender, sword-like leaf with a distinctive vein running along the middle. This plant can be toxic to humans and animals and can cause skin irritation. Yellow flag iris can reproduce by seeds, so it will form a seed pod from late summer to fall. It can also spread by roots. So if a rhizome falls off on the bottom, then a new plant can form that way. So several hundred plants can be connected underwater due to this extensive root system. It also creates thick mats of roots, which can damage wildlife habitat as the animals can't reach the shore to nest. Other impacts yellow flag iris has is that it will clog ditches and irrigation systems with its roots. It will reduce the water storage capacity a wetland has, and it will also outcompete native species like the cattail, which you will see in a moment. The best management options for yellow flag iris is to clip off all of the seed heads before the seeds disperse. Another way is to make sure you dig up all the roots, and these two management options will have to be done annually. Okay, now that you know how to identify the invasive yellow flag iris, let's look at cattail. So cattail is a native species, however it does look similar to yellow flag iris. But the way you can tell the difference is, as you can see behind me, cattail is a lot taller. It has a flat ribbon-like leaf with a waxy layer to it. It also doesn't have the distinctive vein growing along the center like yellow flag iris. Another way you can identify cattail is by this big brown cigar-shaped head along this thin stalk. Cattail has been used for many things, like creating mats and blankets. It also creates lots of habitat for animals like birds, ducks, insects, and even microinvertebrates. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope.
Okay, so hopefully that gave you an idea of the difference between cattail and yellow flag iris, because it can be a little bit tricky to tell the difference without the flower head on there. So just to recap what was mentioned in the video, so the flowers, they're bright yellow, they resemble the garden iris, and you'll usually see them growing along the riparian area. The leaf is sword-like rib with a rib right down the middle, and then the seed pods resemble a jalapeno pepper. Okay, so the next riparian plant is purple loosestrife, and I don't know if you noticed in that video, there was actually some purple loosestrife growing beside Tara in that last video there. So identification tips, it's a pinkish purple flower arranged along a vertical spike. Again, quite an attractive flower, and it was introduced through the horticulture industry and escaped people's gardens and has made its way into aquatic ecosystems. It does have a woody square stem with opposite leaves. It does grow 1 to 3 meters tall, and it's usually found in riparian areas. The next one is flowering rush. This is one that we have still find for sale in garden centers. So just buyer beware of this one. Again, it's quite an attractive flower. We did have an infestation of this up in the cusp that we have dug out, and we hope that it's gone, but definitely one that's high priority for us in our region that we're keeping our eyes open for. So it does grow in freshwater wetlands. Its stems are erect and triangular near the base, and it does grow up to 150 centimeters. Leaves are green and sword-shaped. The flowers are pink to white with the red anther in the middle. So that's that one. And the last thing I want to talk to you guys about for IDing is broiling disease. So this is a pathogen. It's a microscopic parasite that causes skeletal deformities, causing fish to swim basically in a circle and causes mortality. So can kill up to 90% of juveniles of different types of fish species if it is introduced into a water body. The good news is broiling disease has not been found in BC, but it has been found in neighboring watersheds in Alberta. So something to be really aware of, that if you are in Alberta, to ensure that you're practicing all of those best management practices. So how can you help prevent broiling disease from coming into our watersheds? You never want to move fish or fish parts from one water body to another. You want to use fish cleaning stations where available, and just making sure that you're never putting any sort of fish parts down into kitchen carburetors. And then again, practicing that clean, drain, dry protocol that we talked about earlier in the slide. With this one though, if you know that you've been to somewhere with broiling disease, you want to make sure that you're using really hot water, so 90 degrees, and then ensuring like a pressure washer would be ideal. If you do see a fish that exhibits any sort of broiling disease behavior, so you're seeing in this picture the deformity, or you see fish swimming in a circle, you can call the RAP line and report it, because that would be something that we'd really want to know about. Okay, so other ways you can get involved besides partaking in all those best management practices is becoming a community science volunteer with CCIS. So right now we have a new program that is going to help protect Kootenay Lake from invasive species. So there's two ways to get involved. Is we do have some invasive mussel monitoring program. So we're looking for volunteers who own private docks in area A, D, and E of Kootenay Lake to help monitor for invasive mussels. So this would involve volunteers are going to receive 2 assembled mussel monitoring substrate samples. They're going to attach those to their docks, and they will be required to check them about every 2 weeks during the summer and fall. The other one is we're looking for people who want to do some shoreline surveys for invasive clams and remove some invasive plants on selected shorelines in Kootenay Lake. So you'll get training from CCIS, we'll do some workshopping with you, and those positions will run during the fall. So we'll throw up the link to that and send it in the email afterwards if that's something that you want to get involved with. Okay, so we're going to do a quiz. So Paige, if you're ready with our polls. So what I'm going to throw up a slide with a hint, and then Paige is going to put up the quiz, and it's your job, it's your time to click the mouse and pick which invader I am talking about. Okay, so the first one is, it's a D-shaped invader. So what of this list, what is the D-shaped invader? Well, just let me know how people are doing answering their page. We'll give you guys about 10 seconds.
All right, looks like we've got about half of our responses in now. A couple more seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now.
Okay, do you want to share the results? Okay, awesome. Okay, so most of you got it right. It is, in fact, the zebra quagga mussel, that D-shaped invader. Okay, so the next one is, the hint is found in the pet trade as an aquarium species. So which one of these was found in the pet trade that I mentioned? So people are guessing their page?
Yeah, about halfway there. A little bit more diversity in the guesses on this one.
Okay.
All right, looks like we've got our last few responses here, and we'll wrap this one up.
Okay, so I will admit, so the answer for this one was the Asian clam, but if you did pick American bullfrog, you're not necessarily wrong. That is a culprit of the pet trade. We do surveys around here and we have yet to see bullfrogs in the pet trade, but worldwide that is a vector of spread. So if you said American bullfrog, well, give yourself a pat on the back. We'll give you that one. But Asian clams are definitely one. Like I said, it's the pygmy or the gold clam. What might be the name that you'll see it in a way that they spread around. Okay, the next one is these seeds of this plant look like jalapeno peppers. So what invasive plant? The seeds look like jalapeno peppers. Or unripened bananas, this could be another one. Small ones.
We'll just wait on a couple more responses here.
Sure.
All right.
Awesome. Okay, so it looks like majority got it right. So it is the yellow flag iris. So if you are dealing with this plant, definitely you can dig it out. Just be careful of the rhizomes. But if you don't have time for that, because they are tricky to dig out, just clipping the seed heads and disposing them is a great control method for sure. Okay, the next one. The hint is flowers are pink to white with a red anther. So what invasive plant was that? Yeah, don't be fooled by the beauty of some of these plants. They're beautiful, but be aware. We have people answering their page?
Yeah.
Great.
Last chance here.
Awesome. Yep, flowering rush. Looks like most of you got that right. So I can see why people want to plant this in their garden. It is quite pretty, but just know that there are some other great alternatives that are much safer. So definitely consult that PlantWise brochure for some alternatives to flowering rush if you do have a backyard pond that you're trying to put some vegetation in. Okay, this next hint, it's a woody square stem. So what invasive species had a woody square stem?
Okay, so far everyone's got this. We'll give you a couple more seconds here to put your guesses in. And we'll wrap that one up.
Okay, great, 100%. You guys are geniuses. Yes, this is purple loosestrife. Again, another horticulture escape artist to be aware of. Again, there's great alternatives out there that you don't need to plant this one. Okay, the last one, an invader from the eastern part of North America. I don't think I actually mentioned this in the presentation, but process of elimination, maybe you'll get it.
Pretty good so far. Give you another moment here. And I'll wrap that one up.
Yeah, American bullfrog. So it's native, or it's part of the ecology is in the eastern part of North America. So don't be fooled that like everything that's from Canada is safe to be in BC. Like it can be that regionally specific. So I grew up in Ontario and I remember hearing bullfrogs serenade, and it was just part of the natural ecosystem. They have a lot more predators out there to keep them at bay. They've evolved for hundreds of years, thousands of years through that ecosystem. For those of you who pick zebra quagga mussels, their native territory is the Baltic Sea. So the eastern part of Europe is their native land. So that wraps up the quiz. So just a big thanks to our funders who support the CKIS education program, so Columbia Basin Trust and the province of British Columbia. Their support means that we can do webinars like this and other outreach activities. So just know that CCIS, we have a wealth of information. So if you want to know more, our website is a really valuable resource. You can email us, reach out. We're definitely here to help. Sign up to be a member, join our newsletter. There's lots of ways to get involved. If you did have any questions or comments, please just use the Q&A box, type them in there. I am going to pass it over to Paige and we'll do the Q&A at the end if anyone had any questions.
Great, thank you so much, Lori. Can everyone see my presentation again here now? Great. Okay, so yeah, thank you for the great presentation. That was really informative, and it's so important that we're all aware of these species when we're out doing our work. Before we get to the Q&A, I just wanted to briefly discuss a few Living Lakes programs related to aquatic invasive species. Firstly, our National Lake Blitz program is working to support that community monitoring and removal of invasive species program led by CCIS that Lori mentioned. Outside of that area on Kootenay Lake, people across Canada are invited to participate in the National Lake Blitz to help create a snapshot of fresh water in Canada by collecting temperature readings and taking photos of their lakes. Participants are encouraged to watch for invasive species and report them as part of their monitoring activities with this program. If you are interested in participating in the Lake Blitz, please visit the event page, lakeblitz.livinglakescanada.ca for information and to register. I think Nicole can put the link in the chat for that as well. Next, Living Lakes is currently involved with the pilot stages of implementing the Columbia Basin Water Monitoring Framework. The goal of this project is to establish a unified water monitoring network based on a priority monitoring matrix that reflects local priorities as well as scientific needs to better understand how our watersheds are being impacted by climate change. The regional invasive species organizations are important participants in the process of identifying priority monitoring needs and have shared valuable insights with us about how climate change could allow invasive species to establish more readily at high elevations. We're currently piloting this program in 3 areas, and over the next month, we will be conducting community engagement to understand local water monitoring priorities and needs in 3 pilot areas. So these pilot areas include the Mid-Columbia Kootenay on the west side here, the Columbia Valley to the east, and the Elk River Valley. So you can visit the program page to learn more about this process. And if you have a concern or an interest in one of those areas, you're welcome to get in touch with us to become involved with that consultation process. Living Lakes also hosts the Columbia Basin Water Hub, an open source database providing a central place to access water data and information contributed by a wide range of sources. As part of the Provincial Invasive Mussel Monitoring Protocol, some basic water quality data is collected, and CCIS, along with the Columbia Shuswap Invasive Species Society and the East Kootenay Invasive Species Society, are sharing the water quality data that they collect as part of their invasive mussel monitoring programs through the Water Hub, providing critical information about lake water quality across the basin. You can explore that data and data submitted by many other organizations, as well as our Living Lakes water monitoring programs at cbwaterhub.ca. Finally, Living Lakes is also a partner in the iTrack DNA project, aiming to standardize methods for targeted eDNA analysis. Using this technology, a single scoop of water from a water body can signal the presence of at-risk, invasive, pest, or culturally and economically important animal species. The iTrack program is prioritizing the development of tools to identify a number of species that are also on the priority invasive species list for our region, including zebra and quagga mussels. You can learn more about this program at itrackdna.ca or by contacting Program Manager Regan Mallinson. So that concludes our presentation for today. We appreciate everyone taking the time to join us and learn more about aquatic invasive species, and we welcome any questions in the Q&A box. All right, well, if there are no questions, I guess we can wrap up a couple minutes early here. And if you do have any follow-up questions, you're always welcome to get in touch with Lori or myself by email.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, take care, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you as well, Lori, for the presentation. That was really informative.